Welcome back to the Fringe podcast presented by Imperial Golf. My name is Brandon Tritek here with JT Watson, John Snyder, special guest Melissa Seiler from Driving Pursuits, not KC.
That's right.
Dropped that off the name. Excellent. So why don't you tell us kind of...
Yeah, he nailed it.
Okay.
Yeah. Seiler, not Seiler.
Yes, Seiler.
Sailor,
I made
so
sure.
Good thing you did the intro.
Yeah. So why don't you just tell us kind of a little bit about you, what you do?
Yeah, so I'm an employee benefits producer for my full-time job, and about 6 years ago I started Driving Pursuits. We are a women's golf group. We teach women executives in Kansas City how to golf, give them a non-threatening environment to learn the game, and really we like the happy hour and appetizers after the golf.
That's the main reason.
Exactly.
So by non-threatening, you mean no males?
Yeah. We're trying to
good.
we're trying to demystify all of the rules around golf that people
okay.
seem to be intimidated by. When you're new to the game, it's endless. It's very intimidating to start, especially as you're older in your career and you've never played. You don't really know even where to start. So,
What's kind of the most difficult thing for most women beginning to get over when it comes to playing golf?
I would say the intimidation factor, right? Just where do you just show up at a course and walk in and say, hey, what do I wear? What clubs do I need? If I want to hit balls on the range, where do I buy those? I mean, it's just endless. So it can just be very overwhelming. So we just saw a need. The more women that I talked to in the business community, there was just such an interest in learning the game and starting with really no place to go outside of Topgolf. A lot of us shared the same sentiment that while our spouses might golf, trying to learn from them is probably not good for anybody. We all know how that ends.
Divorce.
Yeah, well, hopefully not that bad, John.
Oh, right to the chase there. Divorce immediately.
I'm on my fourth
We save
wife
marriages
because
here.
of this.
I think it's going to go with
Don't teach your
they just stop playing golf. Well, usually.
Okay. Sorry, took that too far.
They save the marriage by just quitting.
Yeah.
They die.
Exactly.
So grim.
That goes for not just spouses, but family in general.
Exactly.
We deal with the same thing with
Yeah.
kids and their parents, and then the parents want to hover, and then we have to have an uncomfortable discussion about why that's not working.
Yeah, family in general.
You know.
It's not good. So I'm curious, what kind of led you guys down the path of thinking up this whole charity? It's a charitable foundation, correct?
It is not. We're an LLC, actually. We're not a nonprofit. We've partnered with the Kansas Golf Foundation, though, this year to provide scholarships to women in the nonprofit space.
Nice.
So they can participate in Driving Pursuits and get sponsorships through other members. So that is actually kind of breaking news. We're just getting ready to roll that out to the public in the next couple weeks. We've announced it internally to our members and already raised almost $1,000 for sponsorship. So it's exciting. We're happy to tap into that space.
Yeah.
But we are an LLC. We started in 2019 with 11 members, and we have 72 this year. So we've had some really great growth, even despite 2020 not being able to have a season at all, having to cancel everything. It's been great. I think
You guys had no events in 2020.
we didn't. We met virtually a few times for happy hours over Zoom.
Wow.
Y'all drinking out of
Impressive.
wine boxes at home.
Yeah, and talking about our golf aspirations, and mostly it was about where do I buy golf clothes? I'm struggling to find cute golf clothes.
Tennis store.
Yeah. What'd you say? The tennis store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're exactly
Kinda joking,
right.
but
Actually,
not actually.
No, I mean you buy.
That's
My wife talked about this, and
Yep.
she's not a golfer, but she's like, yeah, golf clothes suck. But you go buy like tennis skirts, and they're really cute.
Tennis skirts on Amazon. That is my go-to right now
what
for
we've
golf
heard
clothes.
from women.
Yeah.
Is the golf stuff is just like either too high-waisted or too long or both or
Yep.
something like
Well,
that.
because partly
Not
'cause
that
of
I've
the
tried them
rules,
on.
right?
You sound like you're very familiar,
Yeah.
JT.
They
You're
just
pretty
find
feminine,
in
let's
the
be
love
honest.
handle area, and it's not flattering because of my hips. Yeah. No, but
I
that's
will
I have
say-
childbearing hips, but that's a whole nother discussion.
gonna go off the rails quick.
Yeah, well, you know. But
Uh,
isn't that partly because of the rules changes too, though? Because like they've made some changes right on the LPGA tour about like just discreet clothing and stuff.
for dress codes? I don't know if that was like an official rules.
Oh,
thing.
that wasn't
I think just
official?
This generation
Isn't
has
that-
pushed
isn't
the
that a thing
envelope.
that they were like,
All I can say is there's been a huge evolution, I feel like. I don't know if
Yeah.
people actually, enough of us started complaining about the way that the clothes fit. But when I went to Golf
They don't.
Galaxy a couple weeks ago and I took one of our new members because she didn't know where to go for clubs or clothes or anything. And so I went with her, and actually a lot of the brands have evolved and they're starting to fit better, and they're, just
putting more time into women's clothing.
yeah, I think so. And honestly, the more women, especially younger women who enter the game, I think those brands are evolving kind of with that, just with all of us kind of entering the game. Even 10 years ago, it was such an older demographic of females, I think, that were playing.
Yep.
So that was well suited for them. So
Leagues too.
Yeah.
We're always that way.
Yep.
And most leagues are mostly friendly to the older retired group because they're mornings,
mhm.
weekdays. Because I have a couple clients that are mid to upper 20s, and they kind of like not near driving pursuits, but they started their own little league. It's kind of the same thing.
Cool.
And they have like 16 or 17 women that are all mostly 30 or under.
Awesome.
But it's the same thing. They're, it's an environment to develop in golf that's not intimidating, and they can just play. I think they play it like Heart of America, I want to
Okay,
say
yeah.
maybe, but
Yep.
and it's just a way for them for it to feel a bit more innocent and fun, and all the things you're talking about.
I
But
love it.
they all looked for leagues and they couldn't find any because a lot
Sure.
of the leagues are, like
Full and
morning
yeah.
18-hole rounds with
Yep.
retirees.
we
Going back real quick to kind of how this whole business plan came into fruition for you. Like, was this just through observation, kind of you had been near golf and always wanted to try this, or was it like just some random idea that popped into
Great
your head?
question. So my only exposure to golf personally was my grandfather was an avid golfer.
Okay.
I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. This was my mother's father. And he was winning all of the, championships at Whitehaven Country Club in Memphis, Tennessee.
Well, that sounds very
Um,
posh. Quite even.
Yeah. It used to be, I think.
What way?
So he was an avid golfer. I remember him buying me a set of clubs, probably those little plastic sets when I was a toddler, and then a set of irons when I was probably 7 or 8. Nice.
There's no way to cover that up.
No.
And then he passed away when I was 9. And my dad and my stepdad, they didn't golf, so I kind of lost any exposure that I could have had to the game at that point. None of the women in my family golfed either. I don't know if it was a Southern thing or just my family unit, but women actually were not really invited to go out and golf.
It's literally all of golf tradition.
Yeah,
Right. Just
I
carried over
wonder.
to the club.
Because it's the South, so I mean,
Mhm.
it's just they're the last to adapt.
Yeah, in a
Maybe,
lot
in
of ways.
some ways.
That's fair. Yeah,
It's not all
I
bad.
can
I'm
attest
just
to
saying,
that.
It's just tradition.
sure.
I don't know how long this dates back, but I heard some of our high schoolers from South years ago that they joked that was what golf stood for. Gentlemen only, ladies forbidden.
From what? What are you talking about?
Ooh,
What are
Right?
you talking about?
that's like infuriating.
So like I had some high schoolers that I worked with.
High schoolers.
Yeah,
That said that.
yeah. They were like, "Oh, don't you know that's what golf stands for? Gentlemen only, ladies forbidden." I was like,
Entitled little bastards.
"No, this is the
Yeah.
girls saying this.
Oh, the girl. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No, not guys. I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Oh,
no,
oh.
like
They were
female.
told, they were told that, obviously.
I don't know. It sounded like
Well, I mean, that's an old joke.
Yeah.
That's been around a while.
I hadn't heard it.
Not inaccurate.
Jokes are-
That's
yeah.
not actually what golf means.
Yeah.
No, I.
No way.
It's not. It wasn't
Wait,
inaccurate.
I'll get
That's not, what we're,
Wait.
that's not what we're here to talk about.
Wait a second. That's all along. This is my. Okay, I was wrong. I'm shocked.
No,
by
I just
this.
they said I had never heard that before. Like,
Yeah.
that
That's
saying.
wild.
Yeah,
But it's not surprising.
I've never had a problem with it.
I don't
just-
really either, actually.
I don't like courses that like I had a problem with places like Augusta that are incredibly public in visibility that were men's only for
Yeah.
a lot of years. And if you're going to be that visible, you've lost your
Right.
right now to be men's only. In their case, and
Hey, well,
There
now they have one woman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think they've added a few.
I think
since
they have
Yeah.
too.
Visa
I don't know
Rice.
who they
He
are.
was
but-
just kind of the ceiling.
The first,
breaker.
the mover.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have an issue. It's not my preference, to be clear. I wouldn't ever join a club like that. It's just,
I think
you want to have a boys club, like go for it. That's your prerogative. You know?
the slightly flip like opinion or way to look at it is there are many clubs for many things, like outside of golf, and it's
Right.
like, I guess what I'm saying is just because it's gender specific maybe doesn't necessarily mean it's like discriminatory
Well,
or bad.
and I certainly don't want to be a double standard here, right? So we're a women's golf organization.
Right.
So I'm
yeah,
not,
why can't I join?
Right.
What the hell?
I just like to pick on Wolf Creek a little bit because I've
Driving pursuits.
heard the old
KC.
stories and things like that. So
Yeah. No,
it's-
and I get the perception of it. I just think like there's going to be women's clubs for things specifically, and yours is a prime example of that. And I'm a fan of it. I think that you're creating opportunity for women to socialize and bond over something that they all have like interests in.
Sure.
Right. And so I think, yeah, especially with the sensitivity in our society today to these types of things, they can take it and make a negative spin on it if they want to.
100%.
I don't see it that way. It's just it's personal preference,
Right.
kind of a thing.
And we're not really
So-
spending our time knocking down doors and saying, "Hey, men, let us in."
Right.
We're focused on bringing women to the game.
You
I mean,
bet.
that's our commitment is to getting exposure to the easy path for women to enter the game, which is eliminating some of the perception about the rules and
Yep.
this is so intimidating and it's not fun and you've got to know and understand every little detail in order to play around. That's not the case at all. We want them to show up with speakers and seltzers and ready to have fun.
Absolutely.
And kind of just
That's what
let
we do.
stress fall off.
Yeah.
And then, as they evolve in their golf game, if they want to continue to take lessons and get a little bit better, then they can certainly do that.
That's like exactly how we approach coaching, though, too.
Yeah.
And that's regardless of male or female, because the whole point is it's, as a new person, intimidating. And then you come into a setting like this, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it's just like, I don't know what I'm doing, and you're putting me on camera, and like, it's like, don't worry, I'm just going to put it on YouTube later. For everybody to see what not
Roll
to
the
do.
clip.
But yeah.
No,
So-
just kidding.
But like, I mean, we're always saying the same things. I don't know how you guys treat clients, but like with most new golfers, I'm always saying basically make up your own rules.
Mhm.
Like you don't need to play tee to green, and you don't
Right.
need to feel pressure from like pace of play. Like just pick up your damn ball and go throw it at 100 yards out and play from there,
Mhm.
and make up your own games and just have fun with it.
Right.
It's like get out there and play. Like don't worry about following the rule book.
Mm-hmm.
Tee up a driver from the
Tee.
fairway every now and again. Like
What's that?
tee up a driver from the fairway
Yeah.
every now and again. Like
But I've
make it
had
fun.
I've actually had a lot of women that have started playing because of their husbands or whatever, and they want to play golf with them. And I suggest that, and a lot of them, it bridges the gap big time because they're like, I didn't realize I could do that.
Right.
And then they go do it, and they're like, I had so much fun.
Yeah.
It's like I can, like 150 in, I can realistically get there pretty quick.
Right.
And, like,
in
it's
3
like,
or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
you're not qualifying for a tour event.
Well, it's so funny how self-deprecating women are. I mean, we all say we suck. You guys have heard me in my lessons, kind of
Yeah.
beat myself up a bit, and so I'm working on that. But there's so many women that go out and then they have a really great shot, and it's no different than the men that I've played with, where that's the thing that keeps you coming back to the game. And so not always, I would encourage women to not always assume that other people are paying attention to every little detail during your round. In fact, experienced golfers are so concerned with their own performance that they're not at
Yeah.
all worried about what you're doing.
And
Yeah.
moreover, other bad golfers are so stressed about the shot
Exactly.
they're going to have to hit.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Because
Yep.
that's,
They're
and I want to be careful not to generalize, but when I've done playing lessons, and I'm sure John, you can attest to this, is that I've noticed in general, females are more observant of their surroundings,
Sure.
right? And
And
so
they listen way better,
they're way easier to coach because of that.
especially when you're not married to
But on the but on the golf
Fair.
course, on the golf course, it tends to be a bit of a hurdle because now you're not really engaged in each shot because you're concerned with the group behind you that has this body language that looks threatening, or they're
The
standing. on the
marshal's
tee.
showing up.
Yeah,
Or,
right. And
Mhm.
so I'm always quick to point out with especially our lady golfers, like develop a pre-shot routine and stick with it and understand that you are allotted this time to play.
Mhm.
It is, you're a paying member like anybody else. Like, just own the fact that you're allowed to be here and take your time and go through your steps instead of feeling like, oh, I play a separate set of tees, so I have to rush up and hit my shot and get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not a nuisance. You're supposed to be there having fun and enjoying yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
and guys are just, I think, quicker to, focusing on those tasks occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just through the years. I don't know if you've seen that on course, but that's just stuff I've noticed.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to flip a guy off every now and then. So you're gonna get those. You're gonna get those douchebags that do like hit into you and
Right.
like constantly pressure you. And
Oh,
honestly,
man.
that's not most people.
Yeah,
Like
Kyle-
most people are pretty friendly.
Kyle and I just had
It-
that happen a couple weeks ago at Falcon Valley, and we were playing fast,
Yeah.
very cognizant, and I mean, it was just frustrating. But some people just that's the way that
That's
they play.
so funny, man. I never have those things happen to me, but that literally happened at Winterstone. And Kyle and I were out there. We teed off on one, and it was dreary and rainy, so
Yeah.
like we were close to the only guys on the golf course.
Mm.
We get through 3 holes. We tee off, and I'm in like pre-shot routine mode, middle of my routine, and this ball comes like hitting back behind me, and we like turn around, and some old dude's just like teed off, and apparently was just oblivious that we were on the golf course. Thought he had it to himself, and comes up like
Sure.
yelling at us that we just skipped around him. I was like,
Mm.
"Are you that unaware?
Yeah.
We didn't drive by you. Like,
Right.
what the heck? You
Well,
know,
you're much more professional than I would have been.
that's not
You would've
what
flipped him
came
off.
out of my mouth.
Probably stronger.
I was a bit more threatening to the guy, but it was
Well, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
So
I don't
Frustrating.
have that happen to me like ever, and so it was just really an interesting. I mean, I wasn't holding him back, but Kyle was like
Oh yeah, no doubt.
big country boy, and
Okay.
I wanted to let him loose.
Always ready to fight.
Yeah.
Ready to throw down.
Oh
Some
man.
old guy on the
On the
golf
green.
course.
I could have fried bacon on his forehead for the next 2 holes. He was running hot, man.
Yeah.
So
I remember when I worked at country club in eastern Iowa, it was always the people who would complain would always be the like 80-year-old guys because the ladies would always go out on Wednesday, Thursday morning. And it's these 80-year-old guys that were getting outdriven by the ladies that would complain that they were the ones that were super
They're with the
slow and taking their time and just holding everyone up.
Oh,
And
that's
these
not
ladies would finish 18 holes on a fairly tough course in like 3 hours.
Oh,
And these guys come in like, oh, that's
still complaining.
yeah, and you watch the guy he'll stop in the clubhouse, go back to the tee and hit his shot, and he like tops it 20 feet off the tee, and
You know why
So
they're
they're
he does
better
his
than-
pre-shot
yeah.
routine with 2 swings.
That's a
and-
gender bias for sure.
Yeah.
You know why they're really complaining? Because they're 80 years old and they didn't plan for retirement very well. So now their life's kind of shitty, but they're still playing golf, so they should be happy.
If they
They're
were
angry.
you
You
went
nailed
such a
it.
different direction with that.
It's 100%.
if they're a member of that
I'm not
club, they
kidding.
planned very
Like-
well for retirement because that's not
'Cause
cheap.
they know they have to get dollar menu after.
Yeah.
So on the flip of that, though, like on a more serious note,
Not anticipating that response.
It's accurate. I've
Like-
experienced it.
one thing that I do notice though with newer golfers is like the lack of awareness of like pace of play and being golf ready, and that's one thing that we really preach to our members, and it takes some education when you're new to the game. So like from your guys' perspective, like as experienced golfers, what advice would you give to to new people entering the game?
Well, it's interesting because obviously we've all worked at courses too, and I'd almost push back on that a little bit. I'd say the new golfers are typically just taking time because they're maybe hitting the ball more often. But in general, I see like they tend to hurry themselves up quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
My
Well, stress. Yeah, I mean, there's
yeah,
stress.
yeah, they're just they're not comfortable in the environment. I've just noticed the pace of play issue being kind of those groups that are
Smoke
there
weed?
constantly. No,
Chill, bro.
no,
Let's have fun. Oh, sorry. That's not what you're taking. I figured that would be your answer.
no, not at all. I've just noticed that there are every course has its groups that feel like they own the place.
Yep.
And they're going to take their time. And the groups, and it's not always just guys, but there are groups that will have
be
everybody
ladies.
watches the one player hit in the group.
Mm-hmm.
What drives me nuts is ready golf
Oh,
is you grab your club, you
Oh,
go
yeah.
to your golf ball,
Yes.
and when someone hits and it's your turn, you play. right?
Yeah.
That would expedite things a whole lot. But when all the carts drive to someone's ball,
Yeah.
and then again, and then again, and then again, well, now you're simulating the tee scenario, which everyone has to go one at a time.
Yep.
And then in the fairway rough situation, you don't have to. Like, everyone should disperse to their own golf ball, play their own golf ball,
Yeah.
and you get to the green, and now you're taking turns again.
Mhm.
And so that's the biggest hurdle I've noticed, is that it's just like everybody watches everybody hit
Yep. And
all
waits
their
in the cart.
shots.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it just bogs everything down.
Mhm.
And so, well, yes, obviously new golfers need to be aware of those things. I think that happens with time and experience.
Sure.
And then being obviously paired with people that can educate you on those things helps a lot too. I played with my grandpa who, I mean, it was like the cart was still moving. I had to pick my club up.
We're
Hurry,
on.
get back in. Come on, let's go. We only had 37 minutes to finish 9 holes. Kind of a thing. But
Got to get back to work.
right, yeah, got swim lessons in 38 minutes, So like my introduction was, 3-4 holes at a time, and then as a young kid.
Cool.
And I think what's interesting I've found is that the biggest hurdle with adults is they tend to try to bite off all of it at once.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to play the appropriate tees with my friends, which is nonsensical. Like dropping from 100 and 150 yards is the way you're going to learn at 10, 12, 13 years old anyway.
Yep.
So being humble enough to do that as an adult is probably the biggest challenge,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I encourage all of our newer golfers, regardless of age. Like, go learn at a par 3 course.
Yeah.
Go, like learn 150 and in. To John's point earlier, like
Yep.
that's going to
Part-
teach you about scoring and
Yeah.
all that stuff anyway.
Partly because not to be like to scare people away, but golf is literally one of the hardest games on the planet.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
like, take it in strides. Don't try to comprehend the entire 18-hole round.
Well, and there's no way to just go and observe. Like as a
Yeah.
basketball player as a kid, I'd go to the court and watch, these grown men and women play, and you kind of are learning a little bit, and then you find time and you work on your game, and then you can jump in and try and make it on the pickup court. And golf has so much real estate to it.
Right.
You really have to be fortunate enough that there's someone in your family or friend group that plays and can kind of bring you along,
Sure.
right?
And that eliminates the etiquette, the other struggles, the
can.
intimidation piece. Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
It can.
As long as they're a good example.
It can. I
That's
still
true.
fix at least 12 divot marks on every green I play on these days. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing that we changed this year with our curriculum and the way that we're teaching our brand new members is working from the green and then backwards. So
Beautiful.
how do newer golfers do that on their own outside of instruction through pros?
Like
how
in practice, you mean?
Yeah, like if you just wanted to go out and practice and you're brand new to the game, how would you start?
I mean, the most basic, possibly boring way to do that is to just start putting and chipping a lot. I mean,
Yep.
so spend your time. Like the problem is like a new golfer, and we get this a lot in here, and it's a challenge for us because we're trying to teach people how to swing the club. But it's also like probably the most daunting part about golf is like if
Sure.
you're brand new and you're trying to comprehend how to hit driver accurately, it's like
100%.
good luck with that.
I'm
That's
4
gonna
years
take-
in and I'm still working
Yeah.
with JT on this.
yeah, it's kind of daunting. So it's like, I mean, start with things you can manage. And a lot of new golfers don't realize, too, that confidence in ball contact on little shots translates. Like, it helps you build up. So if you scale up, I mean, even there's stories about Tiger, right, like that, where his dad didn't really let him make a full swing for the first couple years.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just
Yeah.
like
I mean,
chips
he was
and
3
like,
and 4, but
yeah, I know.
he was putting.
No,
and stuff.
but to your point earlier, the age doesn't matter. It's the age you are in golf. And so when you're brand new, it's like
Yep.
you need to spend time, like literally, he'd put his mom's purse out in the yard and just try to like hit little chip shots
Yep.
into
yep,
it. And
yep.
like you can comprehend that as a new golfer.
Sure.
And you can get good contact pretty quickly,
Mm-hmm.
like if you're determined.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, then scale up. And so I'd say the basic way to do it is just find your ceiling and stay there for a while until you're like, this is
You've
boring.
mastered it.
Yeah, mastered it, right?
Sure.
Like to where it's boring, and then it's like, now push your ceiling up.
Cool.
So if that's like 20 yards and you're like, okay, but when I go to 50 or whatever, I'm just making this up, but if I go to 50 and I can't hit the ball, go back to 20.
Yeah.
And it's like, try to go up again and then just keep pushing that
And
ceiling.
I feel like most new golfers are unaware that if it's a public golf course, you have free access to their putting and chipping areas.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
You can just take your putter with a handful of golf balls and go work on that stuff.
Like
There's
as long as you want to.
cost you nothing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
You know, like that Shoal Creek has spaces for that. Tiffany, you know, I mean, you go up to the Outlaw and the Posse, like the Paradise Point complexes.
Don't go to a private club. They will kick you off.
I mean, honestly, if you walk in like you own the place, like nobody's going
That's
to say
true,
anything
yeah.
to you.
Yeah, most of the time.
know,
Based
we're
on
not
personal
recommending that.
experience, I would not recommend.
Yeah.
You know,
But there's tons of public options.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
all over the city.
yeah. And I think that's, again, just to your point, Melissa, like that's some of the hurdles. It's just the general lack of like, well, how do I start this process? Where do I begin? And then we always start with kind of what's encouraging is how you guys are approaching that is from the green back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What, did I say something?
No, he's just nothing. Cracking a beer.
Oh.
It's fine. It's,
Tried to do it quietly. Didn't
now we made it a thing, and I
No
wasn't
such
trying
thing.
to. So move on. Damn it. So yeah, I don't know. Does that help?
Yeah, big time. I mean, I think
Scale, which is
that-
what we were talking about with the whole 150 in thing. Like,
yeah.
start small.
I think these are all things that go into the mentality of a new golfer, though, that just, gosh, it can be daunting, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, now I understand the rules. I know where to go when I get to the club, but focusing on my own game,
Yeah.
how do I make it smaller, simpler, easier?
But to not make it too daunting, it's not much different than any other craft. So as hard as golf is,
Fair.
don't make it like its own thing where it's like, oh, it's impossible. It's like, yeah, but you spend hours and hours and hours doing your career, thousands of hours, and you did that with other sports. So it's not like golf is that different. It's just the difference is that most people don't have the luxury of spending hours and hours and hours on golf.
Sure.
So it's like once a week
Yep.
you get to go play.
Yep.
And so they're trying to comprehend, how do I do all this crap in my swing and then work on this in my short game? Oh, and then also shoot a good score.
Sure.
It's like you don't.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
One thing at a time.
Yeah, you're way overwhelming yourself.
Bite-sized pieces.
Yeah, and you have to understand where it took a potential college player or tour pro to get in 1 year, it's going to take you 10, 15 years.
Sure.
It's not meant to be daunting, but it's like you're not trying to scale your game at that rate because you
Right.
can't,
Right.
you know?
That leads me into like one of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten in my golf game is something that JT said a couple weeks ago after a lesson that we had. He said, "Show me your score from your last round." And then he said, "Okay, how many balls did you just give up on when you were looking for them and you couldn't find them?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, 5 or however many it was." And he's like, "Okay, how many 3-putts did you have?" A lot. And so
Count.
I'm not going to say on
Only
this
one,
podcast.
and I don't even know how that's possible.
No, you might not be
Only
too
18
far
holes.
off, actually, John. So then he said, that's like X amount of strokes that you could just deduct right there.
Yeah.
So think about it in that way. And on the next round that I went out, it was like, man, I really want to keep my eye on the ball because I don't want to have to give up on finding it. And man, I really don't want a 3-putt. So let me position myself better on the green so that I don't have to do that. And so it shaved off a ton of strokes in my very next round. So it was just simplifying the way that you look at the total round, to your point about not making it so overwhelming. And it was so helpful.
And a lot of that's low-hanging fruit.
It is. I mean,
Like-
it's a little bit Golf 101
Yeah.
because, like, the way you explain it sounds like this big eye-opening thing, and all I hear is that you were more focused.
Yeah, it's probably
Like,
true.
You were just more intentional and focused through your round instead of trying to play more casually. And we have a lot of those types of discussions in here.
Yeah,
Because most golfers are playing as a hobby and they're not really that engaged.
well,
They're just kind of
yeah, and I think
there
some
hitting
of
balls,
that,
Yeah.
you know.
some of that's cultural. We live in, the Amazon 2-day delivery type, culture now, and so I can't get my swing in 2 days. Why not? And
Can't buy it on Amazon?
and then the cell phone stuff, like people's attention spans, they really
brutal.
like. We've had this discussion with college coaches where he's like, I can't get my kids to go practice for 2 hours without leaving their phone in the car.
yikes.
And it's like, if you can't dedicate 2 hours of your day
Without your
feeling
phone.
like you have to have this like pacifier with you,
Yeah,
What
of
if
a thing.
something happens to my favorite celebrity?
right? Like I don't. And I will
Who
notice
gives a shit?
because like I grew up. I don't know about you guys, but I played a lot of solo rounds of golf as a teenager.
Nice.
I played 9 holes, in the
Oh, yeah.
evenings,
Oh, yeah.
Mostly
twilight,
solo rounds.
you know.
Absolutely.
It was mainly because I was a loser, but it was just a way.
Not me. Different reason. But
Yeah,
anyways, continue.
But it's something that I reflect on now as like, well, that's where most of my improvement came, because I was out there working on the task at hand. And so many of the golfers we get, which it's totally cool that it's more socially driven. I think I actually like that.
For
these days.
non-losers.
For non-losers, yeah, people that have friends.
Oh, please.
Oh my
But I
God.
think it's
Funny.
interesting that I reflect on that, because I feel like I have that instance a few times a week with people where like, well, no one was available to play, and
So
I'm
they
like,
just
Oh, yeah,
didn't
I've heard
play.
that.
so
Yeah.
So they just didn't go.
you're allowed
Yeah.
to go to the property on your own
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and practice by yourself.
Oh yeah.
You know, like that's not an excuse to me.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and so it's like, especially
Well,
throw music in your ears.
the
like-
irony is too that same person, when they do have people to play with, they're nervous as hell.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like people are
wait.
watching.
You were just complaining about not having anyone to play with, and now you can't focus because you're so nervous.
well, they're looking at me.
like,
Yeah,
Yeah. They
That's
might be
gonna
looking, but they're not focused at all on what you're doing.
right.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and I had a student last week that came in. He's like, man, I went and played 18 the other day, and I was hitting it so great on the range, but then I got on the course and I just couldn't do anything. And it's like,
Weekly story.
well, and I did have 8 beers.
Oh my God.
Well, there's your problem.
That's a distraction.
If you want to
Here's your
lose,
sign.
lose focus and coordination, there's a good way to do it.
That's our effectiveness with people, though. I don't know about you guys, but I'm super blunt, if you can't tell. So when people tell me shit like that, I just
Especially after
stare
8
at them
years.
until they realize it. I'm like, how dumb are you? Because I had that guy that was playing tournaments. I tell this story all the time. He played like state line stuff, and he was like 78 to 82-ish, right?
Yeah, good
Scoring
player.
average.
Cool.
In tournaments, 10 plus strokes higher on average with his casual rounds.
With his casual rounds, he was higher.
Yes.
Because he just didn't focus.
Because
He
he
wasn't
was
paying attention.
distracted.
And, it turns out he was drinking. And it was just like,
he's playing in tournaments.
I didn't even have to lay it out on the table. I just kept asking him questions, and he's like, well, I do have a few beers in casual rounds. I'm like,
few beers.
I know what
Right.
that means.
When they're vague, yeah.
It's like
12.
me having a few in a podcast. That's bullshit. Like 7 or 8 later. But it's like, you really think you're focused?
Right.
Like when you're playing golf casually, you're more drinking beers and then occasionally hitting a golf ball. Like, no duh, you're going to shoot 90, And he's like, wow. And it was like this revelation for him. He was just
You're like, okay, so for every beer, you had 2 strokes. So you
Kind of.
decide how many beers you
Yeah.
want to have.
But the funnier part was that it was this mind-blowing moment, and you could see it in his eyes, and he
Yeah.
was just like, I need to change my habits. It's like, yeah. This has nothing to do with your golf swing.
Sounds more
Yeah,
like
I'm
dumbass.
distracted.
Shouldn't
You're
have
not
drank before I came here.
Yeah.
I did. I was
It's
also
also
do that
fun.
too.
I don't
Right.
mean it cynically. It's fun when you help people
Yeah.
realize those silly things.
Of course.
Like,
I felt silly once I
Yeah.
had this revelation, but
And, to
Which
give
we
you
all
s-
need other people to do that for
Yeah.
us.
We've all had those moments too, because
Yeah.
like we all have had unique paths to golf, John and Brandon and I, and so there were all those. We all had those moments at some point, whether it was swing or course management stuff. When the first couple episodes, John and I talked about the PAT stuff.
Right.
You know, and course management was like the first time I'd ever heard that term, and so it was just like eye-opening. Like, yeah, don't hit this club because that's going right into the hazard if you hit it that far. And it was just like, wow,
Yeah.
you know, I guess basic math, and you don't
Yeah.
think of it in that context. But when you've never approached that subject before, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Especially when
pretty
you're a
eye-opening.
confident golfer, because we were pretty confident at that time and could score pretty well. And so you're
Well, you were,
yeah,
I just played a lot.
you were too. No, I'm just saying you're at a point where you're playing a lot of golf. You're pretty confident, and so it's easy to think in ideals because you're
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
like,
Right.
because you're actually practicing. Like, no, I'm going to hit it right there, and then the person teaching you is like, well, what if you don't? It's like, no,
I'm
no.
going to.
I'm going to.
no, that
Yeah.
bunker's not relevant because I'm hitting it in the fairway. It's like, but your miss is in that bunker.
Right.
It's like, no.
You're like, I had no plan for that.
No.
It's like my 5-year-old. Nuh-uh.
And then I proceed to hit it exactly where
Mm-hmm.
he said I might hit it.
Right.
Like, then it's your fault because you got me thinking about it. But yeah, it is. It's
Right.
mind-blowing how you start to think of golf in like levels with distance.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like, it's very idealistic to think, let's just stay down the middle and we don't have to worry about hazards.
Right.
Right.
But like when you start laying the course out in yardages. So like a hazard, yeah, it's over here. But if you draw, 2 lines out and say that zone, that's the yardage zone that I don't want to be in.
Sure.
Because if I hit my miss, I'm in that hazard.
Yep.
It's kind of eye-opening with how you start playing golf then.
Sure.
It's altered how I play golf permanently.
It doesn't mean you're always conservative. It just
No.
means you're playing to the yardages that
Not at all.
make sense.
That
No,
keep
like,
you out of the
Sometimes
hazards.
that's driver.
Yeah, when
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
swinging driver well, I'm hitting it as often as possible. Because I think, and you've mentioned this quite often, John, where it's like I'll take the confident player over the like perfect golf swing every day, all day,
Yeah.
because the mindset.
talk about that a
is
lot.
What you're after,
Yeah.
right? It's like that's the goal, is to become that person that's just like, yep, that's where I'm hitting my shot.
Yeah.
But then, of course, management tells you, like, okay, but your miss is here or here. So bailout zones is a term we use a lot. Like when you're going to a green and there's water right but bunker left, well, it's hard to hit the ball out of 3 feet of water. So
Turns out.
so the sand
Not
isn't a
gonna
bad
happen.
place.
Yeah.
And it's just, learning how to miss in effective spots.
Yeah.
So, no, I think that's
Which
it.
is probably a little more advanced. I mean, for like what she's talking about with people entering golf, we're definitely
Yeah.
creeping into like slightly more advanced
Yeah, but-
player that
Yeah.
knows their predictable golf
it's
shots. But you can still
helpful.
apply a lot of that
Sure.
to new golfer.
It's good for even new golfers to hear these conversations, though,
Yeah.
because again, we're focused on, wow, there's so much to this, and I can't seem to get better, and I've eliminated some of like my intimidation factor, but I don't know what to do from here
Yeah.
outside of taking lessons or doing a playing round or or
Yeah.
playing lesson.
So can you walk through like what driving pursuits, like how do you guys present golf to people? Like do you have
Yeah.
clinics, or what
Yeah.
does that look like?
Good question. So we have a 6-month program. We typically start in early April and try to wrap up the first or second week of October with a scramble. So we have lessons every other Tuesday from 4:30 to 6, and then we drink wine and have appetizers after.
You drink one
When
during
do
the
you do lessons? You have like you have pros.
We
there to
do.
help
We
you?
have
Or you-
pros through the courses that we partner with.
Oh,
So
okay.
this year we're at Sykes Lady and St. Andrews.
Nice.
Yeah, they've been so awesome and supportive, and we've got 4 great pros out there. So we break it up into 2 cohorts right now, so that we maintain like a 5 or 6 to 1 ratio. So for every member, every 5 or 6 members, we have 1 pro dedicated to that smaller group. So we've got 32 on one night and 34 on the other night that attend the lessons. So there's a lot of business networking that goes on.
Sure.
All of the members of our group are working women. We loosely use the term female executives. Again,
Oh.
women are so self-deprecating that most of us don't think of ourselves as executives by any means. So I like to clarify that it's really working women are the women that we're targeting for the group. And so we want to maintain that career-driven women.
Yeah.
And so that's why we don't have anything currently during the day. We do it in the evening to help accommodate working schedules and things like that. So we have other events that we do. For example, we're doing a happy hour tomorrow at the Corn Ferry tour.
Oh,
so
nice.
at Advent Health. Yep. So for all of our members, we'll be on the 18th hole. And then we have an event at a spa the second week of June. So just a happy hour networking event at Aestheticare Med Spa. They're a
Nice.
partner of ours. And then we'll have a mixer in July where we invite all of our members to bring guests who may be interested in learning about the program and joining in the future. So we do a lot of, outside events that aren't member specific, open to the public.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier you dropped, like, it once was Driving Pursuits KC, so now you're thinking more like nationally,
Broad.
internationally. You're going prestige.
We are. We're going international.
Worldwide.
Wide.
Wide. Sorry, movie reference.
Yeah, right.
Don't get us started.
If I had a magic wand, I would take this thing to every market in the United States. I think there's such a need for it. There are other groups in some markets very similar to ours, but I think a lot of them they don't have the business side, the business networking side, but they are bringing women to the game, and so we love and support that. But we would like to go to Chicago, I think Charleston, South Carolina is on the
Oh, that's a great
radar.
town.
That's a great town.
And then West Palm Beach, Florida is also on the radar. I had somebody reach out today from Wichita. So we may go there too.
What are you waiting for? Get
Yeah,
to it.
really.
We're waiting for our trademark.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're in the
you're trying to-
trademarking process.
Got
So that should be up in the next 6 months.
Mm.
Takes forever to do things like that.
So
by the
we've
way.
heard.
Licensing agreements and
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So we're on our way.
Gotta protect yourself, though.
We would also love, like, if we had endless funds and resources, love to build a facility specific to driving pursuits. I mean, I think our biggest hurdle has always been pros, to your point
Yeah.
earlier. Like, we utilize the pros through the courses that we partner with, and that's been awesome. But if we could hire our own full-time
Yeah.
pros and have a facility that, then we could accommodate, women, stay-at-home moms or men who are intimidated to enter the game. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of them, by the
And
way.
you can
Thing to
vet
think
Been
them.
approached by so many men.
Yeah. It is
Who've
an odd
said,
thing to think
"Hey,
about, but we see it
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
And I'd almost argue it can be as intimidating for the guy that doesn't know.
I almost
Yeah.
feel like it might be worse because
Yeah,
there's an
in some ways.
expectation that they've been
Little.
exposed.
Yeah, and you inevitably have a buddy that's got an ego that's way too big. Yeah.
And they're going to be a jerk when you
Yeah.
go out and play.
Oh yeah, it's great when you tell a guy getting lessons to play from the red tees.
Yeah. Yeah.
It says, "What? You want me to do what?"
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, they're developmental tees. They're forward tees.
Yeah. They're
They're
not
not the,
women.
Well, they all
not
have
the
the old
women's
Ladies'
tees.
Yeah.
tees.
Ladies, seniors, normal men's. Yeah. the
Junior golfers. They're
It's
used
like-
by multiple.
no, actually,
facets,
it's
and
a
I purposely leave out
color
ladies'
coded
tees for that
set of
reason.
tees that have numbers associated to them. So
Yes.
forget the stupid titles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about the yardage
This
you're
is what
playing.
you should play at. Here's your number because this is what your skill level's at.
Yep.
So play at 5,500 yards.
Yep.
Done.
I had that discussion with a guy who was just like, "Well, we just play the white tees wherever we go."
Yeah. Right.
And I'm,
Well,
just,
that's
I'm like,
that's
okay. So I had the scorecards of the courses he played, and I was like, we'll call him Darren. I was like, Darren, that's 1,000 yards difference between these two golf courses, and I'm not joking. It was like 5,600 from one place to 6,400 to the other, and I was just like,
Yeah.
and you're bitching that you shot 10 strokes worse. Like you're
I'm
unaware.
shocked you didn't shoot 20 strokes.
Right. I'm like,
1,000 yards
the
away.
level of difficulty went like this. Like, so will your score.
Yeah.
Actually, that's another good point for new golfers to know is like
Yeah.
you don't need to like study the statistical part of the game, but at least understand that course difficulty plays a large role.
Yep.
So like when you play a Hodge Park and then a national, they're not supposed to be the same scores.
Yep.
Even on both of your best days, right?
Mhm.
Your best day at the national is going to be 10, 12 strokes higher.
So how does somebody determine what that difference is?
Well, so like there's an actual code for it because you can use course ratings
Course rating and
and slope
slope.
rating.
Mhm.
And so there are numbers that help you understand that. And like again, without getting real deep into it, like for a slope rating, for example, a really difficult course from a back set of tees is going to be in the mid 140s.
Yeah.
Maybe pushing a little more.
Yeah, so you'll find the course rating and slope on the back of a scorecard typically. They're side by side. You're going to see, for easy math, a 72 course rating
Yeah.
and then a 130 something or 140 something.
Yeah.
And so you're looking for something sub 120 for a newer golfer, 110 even maybe.
Yeah.
And all it implies is there's less force carries. So your tee shot to fairway has very little in front of you.
Yeah.
The hope is that the terrain is very easy to navigate as well. And we've basically talked and played enough in town here to see places like Roll Meadows. The front nine at Hodge Park in particular is a little easier to navigate. Par 3 courses, again, like you're just trying to engage somebody in the game of golf. And so navigating, a world-class architecture design isn't exactly something you need to jump into. But that's where golf is, again, unique because, growing up playing basketball, once you hit 8th grade, the court's the same length, the hoop's the same size, like it doesn't
The
change.
rules are the same.
Right, a
Yeah.
soccer field, football
Yep,
field,
yep,
the
yep.
dimensions never shift.
Yep.
And the unique part about golf is that that's a variable that's always changing.
Sure.
Drastically, course to
Drastically.
course.
Even the rules change all the time. I feel like.
Well, get modified.
Not
you mean?
not basic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
not
But
not
they
the
then
basic rules.
but then they have the
but-
parallels of like amateur rules versus pro
Right.
rules,
Yeah.
which
Right.
again, the amateur rules are obviously more forgiving,
Sure.
you know, with like
Yeah.
out of bounds stuff and stuff like that.
And I'm not a fan of like brand new golfers following the letter of the law type stuff. I just
Yeah,
think
me
it's
either.
pointless at
Yeah.
that stage because
Yeah.
like I have 2 young boys, and at 5 and 7, if we go out, they're gonna hit the ball a bunch and chase it and burn some energy. And at no point am I gonna mention what a score is or what they need to be doing.
Well, and that's
No.
what we see with so many of our members and just women who have been exposed through their husbands or grandfathers or,
Right.
other women in business who are really good at golf, is this expectation that they should know everything when they show up, you know?
Yeah.
So if they want to go play around, they need to worry about the etiquette. They need to worry about all the rules. And
Which is
if
daunting.
I need to
overall.
drop, what does that look like? That's a whole nother can of worms.
Right, which is why we often tell that golfer, like, just don't give a shit.
Don't worry about
Like,
the rules.
don't listen. And
Have fun. Use best ball. Yeah.
and in the like husband wife scenario, the often what happens is it's all coming from a good place. So like
Sure.
the husband's trying to be helpful and wants his wife to enjoy it and doesn't want to watch her struggle and all this.
Yeah.
She's hitting bad shots and he feels bad, so he wants to immediately intervene, and that's why that doesn't end well. Because
Right.
it's too much smothering.
Right.
Yep.
It's like let it develop organically.
Right.
Like remind her that she doesn't have to play tee to green and she doesn't
Right.
have to
Right.
just like make up your own game and just like give them space.
Right.
And coaching, we're big on that because like obviously part of coaching is training people how to operate mentally on the course versus in practice, right? Or on the course versus in a lesson. Those are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your mindset on the course is different than when it is like when you're
Sure.
in here,
Right.
So like give yourself a damn break.
Right.
Just go out and have fun and make your own game.
Love that.
Yeah.
And that's where I think what you're experiencing too in that finite group of people is obviously the super type A that's incredibly harsh on themselves.
Yes.
Well, because
Overachiever.
often are
Yes.
career driven.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So not only are you working with new golfers, you're working with
Someone who's performing up here
Right.
in their job and at home and probably everything else.
and that's
then,
not entirely that's personalities. That's not specific to women. We see that in here
Sure.
too. You get
Oh, yeah.
surgeons,
Yeah.
lawyers,
Engineers.
right? Engineers.
My favorite
Worst.
phrase is with engineers
They're
is
the
like
worst.
they talk about engineers being like logical and like problem solving driven.
Until you put a golf club in their hand.
Right. Because like my favorite thing has always been like the best way to make an engineer emotional is to give them a problem they can't solve.
Right.
Oh
And
man,
it's just like the emotions
golf
flow.
is
That's
that
the way I've
They
ex-
can't solve it because they're
100%.
like, I can't put this on a piece of paper and
Right.
immediately figure it out.
right.
And it's like, and we'll say things like that to those types of people so that they can understand, like, you need to let
Before you
go
even enter this game.
of your control.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
Yeah.
and then you and I are a good like mixture of the two, I feel like, because I'm decent with numbers. I'm not as strong that way as you are, but there is a certain artistry to golf. And the engineers really struggle with that
Yeah.
concept because it's
Mhm.
not a math equation they can solve.
It's a bit
Mhm.
more organic.
There's too many variables
Yeah.
that are at play. And when you have anybody that operates at that high level frequency and they can't boil it down into something simplistic themselves, because it's, as you've seen on camera, I think, with the lessons that we've had,
Yep.
the golf swing itself is not super complicated.
Right.
It's kind of just knowing where to begin, create structure, and then apply that process. And then, as John mentioned earlier, your runway to improvement's a little longer
Sure.
because you have full-time job, family obligations, but that doesn't mean you can't make strides in improvement. It's just going to look a little different than when you played competitive softball or baseball or
Mhm.
whatever. And we're quick to point out those details so that you're setting expectations for the student early,
Yeah.
which I think we've gotten a lot better at over the years as coaches, because you're not talking just in generalities of the swing for the first 9
Right.
weeks. And now suddenly they've got 10 different things they're processing in week 10. And you're like, hold on, like you need to come back down to, here.
So you actually understand all
Right.
of the outside influences that
Yeah,
are happening.
correct.
That's
And
amazing.
the confidence in it as a coach, I'll just say for myself personally, is that I'm comfortable now only giving that much information and
Yeah.
saying, if you cannot process this, if you cannot set up to the golf ball on your own,
Yeah.
I can't move forward.
Yeah.
Because that's a very simple task, and yet you're still struggling with your checklist kind
Sure.
of thing, right? So it just gives people typically not enough information or not as much as they're hoping, but it's effective information and stuff that they can consistently build on for years to come.
Yep.
Yeah, not to generalize too much, but I would say the difference between training females and males is that when you, like, I often get feedback from females, especially new golfers, of like going through the process, they're 5 or 6 lessons in. And if I'm doing a good job, I'll get the feedback that's like, I appreciate how you take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
And you're not
Yeah,
like
I've heard the same
smothering
thing.
me.
Yeah.
The difference is when you do that with a male, they're impatient as hell.
Yep.
And so, like, you can be
So
6 lessons
interesting.
in and
Yeah.
they still suck at the same thing. And it's like, I'm sorry that you suck at this, but you haven't really
You
done
haven't
what I asked.
practiced. Right.
You haven't really practiced. And even when you did a pretty crappy job of doing what I asked.
Sure.
And so they're like, yeah, I get this. You said it. Let's move on. And it's like, no, you're not ready.
Yeah. We
You
can't
know?
go to the next step until you've
So the females
Mastered this.
generally more patient with that because it's like,
Awesome.
because they want to be like, just like, let me master this. And then we can like take the next step. And
Right.
that's why it can be hard to teach like those engineer types, like those male engineers.
Which that's
'cause
it's not
just
always
a
them.
type. Yeah.
One of my first
Yeah.
lessons today was that way, and
Yeah.
he's asking questions that are 6 steps ahead.
Yeah.
And having been through this so many times now, I'm just comfortable saying like, yeah, I'm not answering that question right now.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, like you can't even do what I'm
Always
asking
been
you to.
comfortable with
You
that.
don't need this on your, yeah.
I know you have. It's just it takes time and
Not ready, Bob.
and like
It's always Bob.
Yeah.
Why is it always
Yeah.
Bob?
Because it's true.
Bob's an asshole. No, I'm just kidding. It just tends to be so simple concept wise.
Yeah.
And I'm always having to draw parallels to other things to help people connect those dots, and guys in particular. Like the fitness parallel makes perfect sense. People have zero issue with like patience when it comes to that stuff. Like if you're trying to go from 200 to 300 bench press, you're aware this is going to take time.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're trying to cut 20 pounds, you're aware this is going to take several weeks of good habits over time.
That doesn't mean they don't like it, though. They still don't
I
like
don't care
it.
if they like it. I'm
I
just
do-
clear that
Just
they
saying
need to
they're
willing
understand
to do
I
it.
totally
But
follow that because I feel
yeah.
like you go to a lesson and you assume, okay, I'm paying
be
for this
better.
lesson and now I'm going to have a new understanding of it.
Right.
And because I have that understanding and this knowledge, it's just going to happen for me.
So the cynicism that develops behind that is like that all coaches have this sinister approach of nickel and diming you,
Mm-hmm.
which is horseshit. Because the real coaches, trust me, we want to give you as much as you can handle as fast as possible.
Yeah.
We don't like seeing you struggle.
Right. You want your
The real-
clients to get better.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's that cynical side of golf, and I'm not saying there aren't some out there that probably do that.
Sure.
But it's like, trust me when I say the real coaches do not like dragging shit out.
For real.
We
You
want
realize,
to push
like,
you like fast. The
Yeah.
problem is like your schedule doesn't allow us to.
Yep.
'Cause you're playing golf once a week.
Well, one thing I love about you guys is that you'll work with all skill levels. Like I've worked with pros in the past who get defeated because I'm not at the level that they maybe expected me to be because I have a golf company.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so they're like, "Oh crap, you suck," and then they're like,
I'm sorry you had to
"I
experience
didn't
that. That's,
expect that, so I'm gonna go deal with Sally over here instead."
Yeah.
Well, in a lot of cases, that happens before the interaction.
Yeah,
If they like ask you ahead of time, like where you're at and what your skill level is, they're like, "Oh, sorry, I don't teach people at that
right,
level." And it's like, so you want to grow the game,
right.
but you don't.
You've bought into the
So it's
mission,
like-
but not really.
Well,
Not
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
to their defense a little bit, I'll say I understand if, for instance, that person's just not very strong in that category.
That's
for,
true.
For
That's
new
fair.
developing golfers, maybe they're just not very patient with them. Because we have weaknesses as coaches, and we're always trying to identify them, resolve them, get better at them. And so I'm not going to pretend like there aren't people that aren't jerks about that stuff. 'cause
Yeah.
we hear those stories far too often. But in reality, if you kind of know your strengths as a coach and you're trying to stick to that stuff,
Yeah.
there's a side of that I respect a little bit, where you're not ruining somebody's interaction with golf because you don't have the patience for it.
Yeah, that's
know?
fair.
Like in my case at home, like my wife is far more patient with my children when it comes to certain things than I am, and so I'm going to let her shine in those moments.
Sure.
Right. And so I think if you're self-aware enough as a coach to say like, yep, I'm not good with kids, or I'm not good with this age group, or I'm not good with this skill level.
That's
Hey, more power to you.
Yeah.
You know, like you're sticking to your strengths. I
Or
respect that.
if you've elevated yourself to a level, I mean, that's another. It's like, okay, if you exclusively train tour pros, and it's like,
Sure.
you don't have the time for that average golfer, not because you don't want to, but like you're literally just at a different level.
Yeah.
That's all fine. But I'm mainly talking about the person that isn't doing those things.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Outside of acknowledging certain strengths, like whether or not you're good with kids or whatever,
Yeah.
it's like you're in a ambassador role though.
Right.
So it's like
Yep.
if you're a club pro, you're supposed to be bridging the gap for
Sure.
Yeah.
golfers.
Sure.
Because we've had
And
plenty of
so you
people
need to
come
show
through
that.
with similar stories
Yeah.
to yours.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, yeah, I took lessons here, and they said I just needed to play a lot before I came back to.
Yeah. And how do you
them.
even?
I'm like,
Which
How do
has
you do
some
that?
which has some truth
Now we're
to
back
it.
to square
It has
one.
a little bit of truth to it. Like it's
It
not
does.
totally false,
Yeah.
It
but
does,
it's,
but
it's a
the
bit
the
off-putting.
conversation
so dismissive.
maybe can go a little further.
Yeah.
Hey, and here's how you do that. Here are the few
You
things.
could
that-
expedite it.
yeah.
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 That's what a coach is supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're still gonna have to practice your ass off, but
Right.
like if I give you these things, it might happen in 1,000 shots versus 10,000.
Yep.
Like that's the goal.
Yep.
I think with our environment too, as like a team of coaches, we've talked about this a bit recently, where we can kind of sharpen each other a little. You know, when you're just Joe Smith's Golf Academy and you're solo, you kind of know what you know.
You have
and
accountability.
Unless you're like a devout
Big time.
reader and network, and you're trying to go to clinics and do this and that. Like I get where people can get stagnant
Sure.
and cynical. It's
Because I've been there.
we all have. We've had those
Accidentally.
moments.
It's not on purpose.
Right.
Like, it's just life.
But
I
the
think
key
that
is
applies to
recognizing
so many things in life,
Oh,
right? Like I
sure.
think about my employee benefits business and
Yep.
my accountability partners and my mentors and
Sure.
teammates that I rely on to say, hey, here's kind of what's working for me, what's working for you, and
Yeah.
super important.
So how has golf served you, like as a mental stress reliever, since picking it up? I'm curious.
Man, that's funny. I feel like if anything right now, yeah.
Adding to my stress.
No. I mean, the opportunity to be outside on a golf course with a prospect
Yeah.
and not have to feel like it's so transactional and we're not
Yeah.
talking about insurance. We're just getting to know each other and spending that quality time. That's the biggest gift that golf has given me. Just the opportunity to connect authentically. And even if it's not a prospective client, it's somebody to network with, or even just the amazing women that I've met that may not ever become a client. But seeing the women that we've put through the program that we're bringing to the game and watching that transcend their business side and then that impacting their ability to spend time with their family, their husbands, their sons, their significant other, whoever that might be,
Right.
their fathers. That's been amazing.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So you said it's a 6-month program. What kind of what's the next step after that 6 months? Do you have like a different part of the organization to help people
Good question.
continue?
So we have thought about an alumni program in the past, but we've not fully developed it yet. So that is in the works for the future. Right now, the curriculum is kind of fluid enough that people tend to come back for about 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
So we have, out of our 11 original members, 8 of those still in the group. So, there's a lot to learn, even at the beginner level. A lot of women don't have time to go out and play 18 holes once a week. So this is their outlet, coming to our lessons, learning the concepts, and then playing, practicing maybe with their husbands or just playing 9 is what we usually see. So
Sounds like they need further development indoors.
I would love that.
A place called
I'm
Imperial
looking
Golf.
I'm looking for either a partner, Imperial, or real estate.
We don't do that, but we do the golf part.
Yeah.
Yep. Wink, wink.
But we do need
So
to
subtle.
evolve our model in terms of the off season. So the weather in Kansas City it's not
Turns
helpful.
out that's why you have indoor places.
Yeah.
That's right. So we should really talk offline about this.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
No, yeah, I think that's a smart idea, because I've thought about that with what you guys have created and built, and I think we've had discussions in the past just in like group settings. It can be rather challenging, and I'm sure you've experienced this, just learning one-on-one. it's more catered to you,
Yeah.
it's more specific to
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And I think that's the next kind of graduating step for
Which is
golfers that are
obviously
in this
our
phase.
focus.
Yeah,
Mhm.
obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we're limited with outdoor space, but it's more where, okay, I'm taking what I've gathered through driving pursuits, and now it's trying to take the next step where I can play
Yeah.
solo.
Yep.
So,
Which every golfer needs. I mean, you got to get to a point
some
where you
point.
graduate to a little bit more
Mhm.
personal instruction,
Mhm.
for sure.
yeah.
Mhm.
We'll
Very
talk.
cool. Your people call my people.
I am my people. Cool.
Yes, so are we. We are our people.
My people will call you.
Yeah.
So
'Cause
how,
you're
how
looking
can the women kind of get in touch with you, get involved?
So we take applications anytime leading up to when our season starts. So right now we're accepting applications for 2024. So they can apply through our website, drivingpursuitskc.org. And then, or follow us on Instagram, Driving Pursuits, and Facebook, Driving Pursuits. But just, reach out to me. I'll share my contact information as well. We always like to do coffees and connect with anybody who's interested in learning the game. If Driving Pursuits isn't the fit, maybe Imperial is.
Maybe I can get that group of 16 young women to contact.
That would be amazing. I was actually
Maybe you
thinking
could,
about that.
Join up.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Oh.
Boom. Connection.
perfect.
16 new members.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We would love to come to North Kansas City as well. Like a whole new chapter of Driving Pursuits.
'Cause you're mainly OP.
Greens. We are. We're in Johnson County, and there's a huge need there, but I think there is here too.
We're very underrepresented as far as like golf in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Which is, you can look at it in two ways. I mean, there's opportunity up here.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and we've kind of talked about that in various years, taking on certain projects and stuff. And so, no, I think it'd be fun to kind of work out
I
some
love how
options.
she says that in like a parent supportive way. Because she's, Johnson County.
Oh,
Yeah, there is opportunity up here. That's so cute.
You guys try so hard.
You Northlanders.
to clarify,
So nice.
I am not a Johnson County girl. I am from Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you very much.
My first taste of that when I was in KC, I was so we worked at a place called Edwin Watts before we started this 12 years ago now, and working at one of the academies in OP, and I was wearing like a pair of like FootJoy Icons, which are like their nice shoes,
Yep.
And my first taste of what Johnson County was a client there was like, "Yo, you're wearing your Johnson County shoes today," and I was like, "What's that mean?" It's like they're fancy.
Sounds like
So-
these are foot joys.
they're 4
So-
years old.
Right.
So not golf related, but my husband, when he first moved to Kansas City, he would call the houses that had lights shining on them on the front of the house, he called them Johnson County lights. The lights that shine up from the ground and highlight the
Yes.
number on your house. Yeah.
Right.
When you
Johnson
can
County lights.
burn money lighting up your house, you live in Johnson County.
Mine are solar, for the record.
Yeah.
I live in Platte City, so what does that make me?
I just grew up
No,
street lights.
North
lit up my
Kansas
house.
City guy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
and sometimes they went out.
And sometimes, yeah, mine flickered like a horror movie.
Yeah.
That was my neighborhood. Actually, it went out.
We
'cause
no
the
longer
firework went off right by
we
it.
are no longer going to get no clients from Johnson County.
Yeah, everyone over in the park
No,
is
I'm
voting.
sending them your way.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're nice, we swear.
It's a bit of a drive. It's
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah.
It is
It-
worth it.
It is
38
funny-
You
minutes
can
or whatever.
attest.
It is funny how like some people use that as an excuse, and I think like all of us grew up where nothing was within 30 minutes,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and so anytime we get that like, yeah, well, it's like a 25-minute drive, I'm like, and
Yeah,
Right.
that's nothing.
Gas is expensive.
Yeah.
And
nah, what's your point? You're still
you make
terrible.
6 figures a year.
Well-
Shut up.
Yeah.
When I first started, writing business in North Kansas City and kind of saw the National and Parkville and just
Yeah.
all the beautiful things here, it's like, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's often overlooked by,
It's a good spot.
All of us in
man.
Johnson
Between
County.
here to Liberty, I mean, like since I've been here the last 6-7 years, it's exploded. Like
Oh, yeah.
homes are
yeah,
always getting built and
Yeah.
it continues. Like we're now at a point too, volume wise, where we're missing like at least 2 more golf courses. Just that, like we need more
Right.
real estate for people
Sure.
to play golf. You know, like I think Tiffany's men's league sold out in 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh, that's
Can't
wild.
even get a tee time most days there.
That's
Yeah,
crazy. That's
unless
like
you're a
Sykes
week out.
Lady.
Yeah.
Same.
So like clearly, I mean, since 2020 especially, the golf boom has really impacted the Northland. And the
Imperial
ironic
Golf.
part is, yeah, we've seen some of it, but like they had Cardinal Hill was like
Oh,
William
yeah.
Jewell's course. Liberty Hills had one out there. I mean, which all went defunct prior to COVID. You know, so like they would have seen an influx too, and it's noticeable. You know, because the courses are just so jammed up here.
So what about you guys and your own course?
I was just saying that. Imperial Golf Club,
Yeah,
Honestly,
someday.
2049.
love
We
to
need
do
just
it.
get investors.
dream big.
2049.
No,
That's my
seriously,
plan.
I've thought about like we just need to buy Tiffany.
I'll be 85.
Oh no,
Yeah.
me too.
Sending property.
Cheers.
Absolutely.
If there's acreage there
Cheers.
to add another
love to
9
do
or
that.
18. You know, if we just got investors to buy Tiffany's property, they have a whole
That
acreage where you can add more holes to it because it was supposed to be like a
Probably not.
218 hole.
We have so many things to talk about offline.
yeah,
By the way,
Right
that's
on.
one of my favorite.
on the line.
On the line,
Yeah, yeah.
off the line.
You're
Things
online.
to make
Yeah.
fun of in the business world. when
Yeah.
people-
We also have kind of a dream. I mean, no, it's too private to have like maybe like a 6-hole facility or something kind of specialty that's like
Cool.
opens
Indoor,
up. I
outdoor.
mean, you're still instructionally focused, and then we
Sure.
can literally walk outside and do some on-course content. But you can also play like a 1-hour round.
Have you guys
Yeah.
been to Harris Park?
What is
It's in the middle of downtown. Chris Harris
Heard of it.
started it.
Yeah.
It is so cool.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact location. I went out there a couple times to visit, but it's in a public park, so it's bringing golf to the inner city. And it's really just smaller greens and kind of, you can, you can't drive really, but
Yeah.
hit some
like
irons.
Par
And
threes, yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one like that in kind of like Legends area, right? Like Baser area. There's like a park that's got like 6 holes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and
Same kind of
Tom
thing.
with
It's
his
not nice. but
feasible.
It's like it's
Yeah.
great for like the average person because it's free and they just
Yeah.
walk out there and hit a
Well,
golf
just
ball around.
2 weeks ago, Tom Watson opened up that Wee Links at Heritage Park. It's
Yeah.
same kind of concept. It's
So
6
cool.
holes,
Yeah.
and the cups are slightly larger than normal,
Mm.
and it's $3 to play it.
Nice.
So it's just a little,
$3,
and that's the type of stuff. Like I was very fortunate where I grew up, where we had 2 par 3 tracks within a 10-minute drive, and one of them, because I was under 18, the majority of the years was like $10 to play, and I could go there, and it was holes from 90 to 150 yards, and it was turf tee mats and then real greens, and it was just perfect because I'd basically play 6 rounds to start the year at those places just to kind
Awesome.
of get back to
Yeah.
the fundamentals. And
Yeah.
so we joked after we saw the mountaintop course down in Branson that was 13 holes, par 3 only, walking only. That
Beers and cigars.
beers and cigars. That it had an interesting dynamic where you can certainly create an environment of like welcoming groups that are people in our age and older, but that it could also have a massive impact on junior golfers because there's cart leasing that you need to have. There's no fairways really to maintain or rough, I should say. It's just from the business side of it seemed like it was really simplified. So
It's
and you'd
awesome.
only need like 5 or 6 acres to do something like that,
Very cool.
honestly. So yeah, that's kind of one of those
That's the big
unrealized
dream.
dreams.
Yeah.
You know, like we've talked about a lot of being able to design something someday.
Very cool.
And we definitely want to own our own facility someday.
Absolutely.
So
We'll have to get with you on that.
Love to. Let's partner.
Yeah. Awesome.
no doubt. Cool. Is that the end? We're done.
Yeah.
That's
All right,
it.
Thank you,
Bye.
Melissa, for
Bye.
joining us.
Drink more beers.
Johnson County. I got to end it.
Drink more
Yeah,
beers.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll hopefully see you next time.